Section 6 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Michelle Foots. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. Chapter 6. So the days went by, fast and fair and outward seeming, while an undercurrent of unquiet emotion rolled below. Helwise made no sign of impatience, but silently forwarded his wish by devoting himself to Olivia, thereby making a green oasis in the desert of her life, and leaving the young pair to themselves. At first, Canaris shunned every one as much as possible, but sympathy, not solitude, was the balm he wanted, and who could give it him so freely as Gladys? Her mute surprise and doubt and grief at this capricious coldness, after such winning warmth, showed him that the guileless heart was already his, and added a soothing sense of power to the reluctance and regret which by turns tormented him. Irresistibly drawn by the best instincts of a faulty but aspiring nature to that which was lovely, true, and pure, he soon returned to Gladys, finding in her sweet society a refreshment and repose Olivia's could never give him. Love he did not feel, but affection, the more helpful for its calmness, confidence, which was given again fourfold, and reverence, daily deepening as time showed him the gentle strength and crystal clarity of the spirit he was linking to his own by ties which death itself could not sever. But the very virtues which won also made him hesitate, though rash enough when yielding to an attraction far less noble. A sense of unworthiness restrained him, even when reluctance had passed from resignation to something like desire, and he paused, as one might, who longed to break a delicate plant, yet delayed, lest it should wither too quickly in his hand. Helwise and Olivia watched this brief wooing with peculiar interest. She, being happy herself, was full of good hope for Gladys, and let her step, unwarned, into the magic circle drawn around her. He sat as if at a play, enjoying the pretty postural enacted before him, content to let summer and seclusion bring the young pair together as naturally and easily as springtime mates the birds. Suspense gave zest to the new combination, surprise added to its flavor, and a dash of danger made it unusually attractive to him. Canaris came to him one day, with a resolute expression on his face, which rendered it noble as well as beautiful. "Sir, I will not do this thing. I dare not." "Dare not? Is cowardice to be added to disobedience and falsehood?" And Helwise looked up from his book with a contemptuous frown. "I will not be sneered out of my purpose, for I never did a braver, better act than when I say to you, I dare not lie to Gladys." "What need of lying? Surely you love her now, or you are a more accomplished actor than I thought you." "I have tried too faithfully for her peace, I fear. But, though I reverence her as an angel, I do not love her as a woman. How can I look into her innocent, confiding face and tell her, she who is all truth, that I love as she does? Yet that is the commonest, most easily forgiven falsehood a man can utter. Is it so hard for you to deceive?" Quick and deep rose the hot scarlet to Canaris's face, and his eyes fell, as if borne down by the emphasis of that one word. But the sincerity of his desire brought courage even out of shame, and, lifting his head with a humility more impressive than pride or anger, he said, steadily, "If this truth redeems that falsehood, I shall, at least, have recovered my own self-respect. I never knew that I had lost it, till Gladys showed me how poor I was in the virtue which makes her what she is." "What conscientious qualm is this? Where would this truth-telling bring you? How would your self-respect bear the knowledge that you had broken the girl's heart? For, angel as you call her, she has one, and you have stolen it." "At your bidding." "Long before I thought of it. Did you imagine you could play with her, to pique Olivia, without harm to Gladys? Is yours a face to smile on a woman day after day, and not teach her to love? In what way but this can you atone for such selfish thoughtlessness? Come, if we are to talk of honor and honesty, do it fairly, and not shift the responsibility of your acts upon my shoulders." Have I done that? I never meant to trouble her. Is there no way out of it but this? Oh, sir, I am not fit to marry her. What am I, to take a fellow creature's happiness into my hands? What have I to offer her but the truth in return for her love, if I must take it to secure her peace? If you offer the truth, you certainly will have nothing else, and not even receive love in return, perhaps, for her respect may go with all the rest. If I know her, the loss of that would wound her heart more deeply than the disappointment your silence will bring her now. Think of this, and be wise as well as generous in the atonement you should make. Bound, whichever way I look, for when I meant to be kindest, I am cruel. Canaris stood perplexed, abashed, remorseful, for Helwise had the art to turn even his virtues into weapons against him, making his newborn regard for Gladys a reason for being falsely true, dishonorably tender. The honest impulse suddenly looked weak and selfish, compassion seemed nobler than sincerity, and present peace better than future happiness. Helwise saw that he was wavering, and turned the scale by calling to his aid one of the strongest passions that rule men, the spirit of rivalry, knowing well its power over one so young, so vain and sensitive. Felix, there must be an end of this. I am tired of it. Since you are more enamored of truth than Gladys, choose and abide by it. I shall miss my congenial comrade, but I will not keep him if he feels my friendship slavery. I release you from all promises. Go your way, in peace. I can do without you. A daring offer, and Helwise risked much in making it, but he knew the man before him, and that in seeming to set free, he only added another link to the invisible chain by which he held him. Canaris looked relieved, amazed, and touched, as he exclaimed, incredulously, "Do you mean it, sir?" "I do, but in return for your liberty, I claim the right to use mine as I will." "Use it? I do not understand." "To comfort Gladys." "How?" "You do not love her, and leave her doubly forlorn, since you have given her a glimpse of love. I must befriend her, as you will not, and when she comes to me, as she has promised, if she is happy, I shall keep her. As fille adoptive." Canaris affirmed, not asked, this, and, in the changed tone, the suspicious glance, Helwise saw that he had aimed well. With a smile that was a sneer, he answered coldly, "Hardly that. The paternal element is sadly lacking in me, and, if it were not, I fear a man of 40 could not adopt a girl of 18 without compromising her, especially one so lonely and so lovely as poor little Gladys." "You will marry her? Yet when I hinted it, you said, 'Impossible.'" "I did, but then I did not know how helpful she could be, how glad to love, how easy to be won by kindness. Ennui drives one to the rashest things, and when you are gone, I shall find it difficult to fill your place. 'Tis a pity to tie the pretty creature to such a clod. But, if I can help and keep her in no other way, I may do it, remembering that her captivity would be a short one. It should be my care that it was a very light one while it lasted." "But she loves me!" exclaimed Canaris, with jealous inconsistency. "I fear so, yet you reject her for a scruple. Hearts are easily caught in the rebound, and who will hold hers more gently than I? Olivia will tell you I can be gentle when it suits me." The name stung Canaris, where pride was sorest, and the thought that this man could take from him both the woman whom he loved and the girl who loved him roused an ignoble desire to silence the noble one. He showed it instantly, for his eye shot a quick glance at the mirror. A smile that was almost insolent passed over his face, and his air was full of the proud consciousness of youth, health, comeliness, and talent. "Thanks for my freedom. I shall know how to use it. Since I may tell Gladys the truth, I do not dread her love so much, and will atone generously, if I can. I think she will accept poverty with me rather than luxury with you. At least she shall have her choice." "Well said. You will succeed, since you possess all the gifts which win women, except wealth and—" "Stop! You shall not say it!" cried Canaris hotly. "Are you possessed of a devil, that you torment me so?" He clenched his hands and walked fast through the room, as if to escape from some fierce impulse. A certain, almost brutal, frankness characterized the intercourse of these men at times, for the tie between them was a peculiar one, and fretted both, though both clung to it with strange tenacity. With equal candor and entire composure, Helwise answered the excited question. "We are all possessed, more or less. Happy the man who is master. My demon is a bad one, for your intellectual devil is hard to manage, since he demands the best of us, and is not satisfied or cheated as easily as some that are stronger, yet less cunning. Yours is ambition, an insatiable fellow, who gives you no rest. I had a fancy to help you rule him, but he proves less interesting than I thought to find him, and is getting to be a bore. See what you can do, alone, only when he gets the upper hand again. Excuse me from interfering. Once is enough." Canaris made no reply, but dashed out of the room as if he could bear no more, leaving Helwise to throw down his book, muttering impatiently, "Here is a froward favourite, and excitement with vengeance. He will not speak yet, for with all his fire he is wary, and while he fumes I must work. But how? But how?" End of chapter 6.
Chapter 7 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Allison. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. 7. A storm raged all that night, but dawn came up so dewy and serene that the world looked like a child waking after anger, with happy smiles upon its lips, penitential tears in its blue eyes. Canaris was early astir, after a night as stormy within as without, during which he had gone through so many alterations of feeling that, weary and still undecided, he was now in the mood to drift whithersoever the first eddy impelled him. Straight to Gladys, it seemed, and, being superstitious, he accepted the accident as a good omen, following his own desire and calling it fate. Wandering in the loneliest, wildest spot of all the domain, he came upon her as suddenly as if a wish had brought her to the nook haunted for both by pleasant memories. Dew drenched her feet, hatless her head, but the feet stood firmly on the cliff which shelved down to the shore below, and the upturned head shone bright against the deep blue of the sky. Morning peace dwelt in her eyes, morning freshness glowed on her cheek, and her whole attitude was one of unconscious aspiration as she stood there with folded hands and parted lips, drinking in the storm-cooled breeze that blew vigorous and sweet across the lake. "What are you doing here so early, little dryad?" And Canaris paused, with an almost irresistible desire to put out his arms and hold her, lest she fly away, so airy was her perch, so eager her look into the boundless distance before her. "Only being happy," and she looked down into his face, with such tender and timid joy in her own, he hardly had need to ask, "Why, Gladys?" "Because of this," showing a string of pearls that hung from her hand, half hidden among the trailing bits of greenery gathered in her walk. "Who gave you that?" demanded Canaris, eyeing it with undisguised surprise, for the pearls were great globy things, milk-white and so perfect that any one but Gladys would have seen how costly was the gift. "Need you ask?" she said, blushing brightly. "Why not? Do you suspect me?" "You cannot deceive me by speaking roughly and looking stern. Who but you would put these in my basket without a word, and let me find them there when I laid my work away last night? I was so pleased, so proud, I could not help keeping them, though far too beautiful for me." Then Canaris knew who had done it, and his hand tightened over the necklace, while his eye went towards the lake, as if he longed to throw it far into the water. He checked himself, and, turning it about with a disdainful air, said coldly, "If I had given you this, it should have been quite perfect. The cross is not large nor fine enough to match the chain. Do you see?" "Ah, but the little cross is more precious than all the rest. That is the one jewel my mother left me, and I put it there to make my rosary complete." And Gladys surveyed it with a pretty mixture of devout affection and girlish pleasure. "I'll give you a better one than this, a string of tiny carved saints in scented wood, blessed by holy hands and fit to say prayers like yours upon. You will take it, though my gift is not half so costly as his," he said eagerly. "Whose?" "Helwise gave you that." "But why?" And Gladys opened wide her clear, large eyes in genuine astonishment. "He is a generous master. Your singing pleases him, and he pays you so," replied Canaris bitterly. "He is not my master." "He will be." "Never. I shall not go, if I am to be burdened with benefits. I will earn my just due, but not be overpaid. Tell him so." Gladys caught back the chain, unclasped the cross, and threw the pearls upon the grass, where they lay gleaming like great drops of frozen dew among the green. Canaris liked that, thought proudly, "I have no need to bribe," and hastened to make his own the thing another seemed to covet. Drawing nearer, he looked up, asking, in a tone that gave the question its true meaning, "May I be your master, Gladys?" "Not even you." "Your slave, then?" "Never that." "Your lover?" "Yes." "But I can give you nothing except myself." "Love is enough." And finding his arms about her, his face, warm and wistful, close to hers, Gladys bent to give and take the first kiss, which was all they had to bestow upon each other. Singularly unimpassioned was the embrace in which they stood for a brief instant. Canaris held her with a clasp more jealous than fond. Gladys clung to him, yet trembled, as if some fear subdued her joy, and both vaguely felt the incompleteness of a moment which should be perfect. "You do love me, then?" she whispered, wondering at his silence. "Should I ask you to be my wife if I did not?" And the stern look melted into an expression of what seemed to her reproach. "No, no. I fancied that I might have deceived myself. I am so young. You are so kind. I never had a friend before." And Gladys smiled shyly as the word which meant lover dropped from her lips. "I am not kind. I am selfish, cruel perhaps, to let you love me so. You will never reproach me for it, Gladys? I mean to save you from ills you know nothing of, to cherish and protect you, if I can." Verily in earnest now, for the touch of those innocent lips reminded him of all his promise meant, recalled his own unfitness to guide or guard another when so wayward and unwise himself. Gladys could not understand the true cause of his beseeching look, his urgency of tone, but saw in them only the generous desire to keep safe the creature dearest to him, and loved him the more for it. "I never can think you selfish, never will reproach you, but will love and trust and honor you all my life," she answered, with a simplicity as solemn as sincere. And holding out the hand that held her dead mother's cross, Canaris pledged his troth upon it with the mistaken chivalry which makes many a man promise to defend a woman against all men but himself. "Now you can be happy again," he said, feeling that he had done his best to keep her so. She thought he meant to look out upon the lake, dreaming of him as when he found her, and turning, stretched forth her arms as if to embrace the whole world, and tell the smiling heaven her glad secret. "Doubly happy. Then I only hoped. Now I know." Something in the exultant gesture, the fervent tone, the radiant face, thrilled Canaris with a sudden admiration, a feeling of proud possession, a conviction that he had gained, not lost, and he said within himself, "I am glad I did it. I will cherish her. She will inspire me, and good shall come out of seeming evil." His spirits rose with a new sense of well-being and well-doing. He gathered up the rejected treasure and gave it back to Gladys, saying lightly, "You may keep it as a wedding gift. Then he need give no other. He meant it so, perhaps, and it will please him. Will you, love?" "If you ask it. But why must brides wear pearls? They mean tears," she added thoughtfully, as she received them back. "Perhaps because then the sorrows of their lives begin. Yours shall not. I will see to that," he promised, with the blind confidence of the self-sacrificing mood he was in. Gladys sat down upon the rock to explore a pocket, so small and empty that Canaris could not help smiling, as he, too, leaned and looked with a lover's freedom. "Only my old chain. I must put back the cross, else I shall lose it," laughed Gladys, as she brought out a little cord of what seemed woven yellow silk. "Is that your hair?" he asked, his eye caught by its peculiar sunshiny hue. "Yes, I could not buy a better one, so I made this. My hair is all the gold I have." "Give it to me, and you wear mine. See, I have an amulet as well as you." Fumbling in his breast, Canaris undid a slender chain, whence hung a locket, curiously chased and tarnished with long wear. This he unslung, and opening, showed Gladys the faded picture of a beautiful, sad woman. "That is my Madonna." "Your mother?" "Yes." "Mine now." The girl touched it with her lips, then softly closed and laid it on her lap. Silently Canaris stood watching her, as she reslung both poor but precious relics, while the costlier one slipped down, as if ashamed to lie beside them. He caught and swung it on his finger, thinking of something he had lately read to Helwise. "Karsu, the Persian, sent a necklace to Sicarin, the princess whom he loved. She was a Christian, and hung a cross upon his string of pearls, as you did," he said aloud. "But I am not a princess, and Mr. Helwise does not love me, so the pretty story is all spoiled." This thing recalled it. "I have given you a necklace, and you are hanging a cross upon it. Wear the one, and use the other, for my sake. Will you, Gladys?" "Did Sicarin convert Karsu?" asked the girl, catching his thought more from his face than his words, for it wore a look of mingled longing and regret, which she had never seen before. "That I do not know, but you must convert me. I am a sad heathen, Hillwise says. Has he tried? No. Then I will. You see, I've had no one to teach me anything but worldly wisdom, and I sometimes feel as I should be better for a little of the heavenly sort. So when you wear the rosary I shall give you, fair saint, in your orisons be all my sins remembered. And Canoras put his hand upon her head, smiling, as if half ashamed of his request. I am no Catholic, but I will pray for you, and you shall not be lost. The mother in heaven and the wife on earth will keep you safe, whispered Gladys in her fervent voice, feeling and answering with a woman's quickness the half-expressed desire of a nature conscious of its weakness, yet unskilled in asking help for its greatest need. Silently the two young lovers put on their ambulance, and hand in hand went back along the winding path till they reached the great eglantine that threw its green arches across the outlet from the wood. All beyond was radiantly bright and blooming, and as Canoras, passing first to hold back the thorny boughs, stood an instant, bathed in the splendor of the early sunshine, Gladys exclaimed, her face full of the tender idolatry of a loving woman, "Oh, Felix, you are so good, so great, so beautiful. If it were not wicked, I should worship you." "God forbid. Do not love me too much, Gladys. I do not deserve it." "How can I help it, when I feel like the girl who lost her heart to the Apollo?" she answered, feeling that she never could love too much. "And broke her heart, you remember, because her God was only a stone. Mine is not, and he will answer when I call. If he does not, he will be harder and colder than the marble." When Canoras, some hours later, told Hellwise, he looked well pleased, thinking, "Jealousy is a helpful ally. I do not regret calling in its aid, though it has cost Olivia her pearls." Aloud he said, with a gracious air which did not entirely conceal some secret anxiety, "Then you have made a clean breast of it, and she forgives all peccadilloes?" "I have not told her, and I will not, till I have atoned for the meanest of them. May I ask you to be silent also for her sake?" "You are wise." Then, as if glad to throw off all doubt and care, he asked, in a pleasantly suggestive tone, "The wedding will soon follow the wooing, I imagine, for you make short work of matters when you do begin?" "You told me to execute your wish in my own way. I will do so, without troubling Mrs. Surrey, or asking you to give us your blessing, since playing the father to orphans is distasteful to you." Very calm and cool was Canoras now, but a sense of wrong burned at his heart, marring the satisfaction he felt in having done what he believed to be a just and generous act. "It is, but I will assume the character long enough to suggest, nay, insist, that however hasty and informal this marriage may be, you will take care that it is one." "Do you mean that for a hint or a warning, sir? I have lied and stolen by your advice. Shall I also betray?" asked Canoras, white with indignation and something like fear, for he began to feel that whatever this man commanded, he must do in spite of himself. "Strong language, Felix, but I forgive it, since I am sincere in wishing well to Gladys. Marry when and how you please, only do not annoy me with another spasm of virtue. It is a waste of time, you see, for the thing is done." "Not yet, but soon will be, for you are fast curing me of a too tender conscience." "Faster than you think, my Faust, since to marry without love betrays as surely as to love without marriage," said Hellwise to himself, expressing in words the thought that had restrained the younger, better man. A week later, Canoras came in with Gladys on his arm, looking very like a bride in a little bonnet tied with white, and a great nosegay of all the sweet pale flowers blooming in the garden that first Sunday of September. "Good-bye, sir, we are going." "Where, may I ask? To church?" "We have been," and Canoras touched the ungloved hand that lay upon his arm, showing the first ring it had ever worn. "Ah, then I can only say, Heaven bless you, Gladys. A happy honeymoon, Felix, and welcome home when you are tired of each other." End of chapter 7. Chapter 8 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Allison. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. 8. "Home at last! Thank heaven!" exclaimed Canoras, as the door opened, letting forth a stream of light and warmth into the chilly gloom of the October night. Gladys made no answer, but an upward look, which seemed to utter the tender welcome he had forgotten to give, and, nestling her hand in his, let him lead her through the bright hall, up the wide stairway to her own domain. "As we return a little before our time, we must not expect a jubilee. Look about you, love, and rest. I will send Mrs. Bland presently, and tell Hellwise we are come." He hurried away, showing no sign of the ennui which had fitfully betrayed itself during the last week. Gladys watched him wistfully, then turned to see what home was like, with eyes that brightened beautifully as they took in the varied charms of the luxurious apartments prepared for her. The newly kindled light filled the room with a dusky splendor, where deepest crimson glowed everywhere, making her feel as if she stood in the heart of a great rose, whose silken petals curtained her round with a color, warmth, and fragrance which would render sleep a rapture of repose. Womanlike, she enjoyed every dainty device and sumptuous detail, yet the smile of pleasure was followed by a faint sigh, as if the new magnificence oppressed her, or something which desired had been forgotten. Stepping carefully, like one who had no right there, she passed on to a charming drawing-room, evidently intended for but two occupants, and all the pleasanter to her for that suggestion. Pausing on the threshold of another door, she peeped in, expecting to find one of those scented satin boudoirs which are fitter for the coquetries of a Parisian belle than for a young wife to hope and dream and pray in. But there was no splendor here, and with a cry of glad surprise its new owner took possession, wondering what gentle magic had guessed and gathered here the simple treasures she best loved. White everywhere, except the pale green of the softly tinted walls, and the mossy carpet strewn with mimic snowdrops. A sheaf of lilies in a silver vase stood on the low chimney-piece above the hearth, where a hospitable fire lay ready to kindle at a touch, and this was the only sign of luxury the room displayed. Quaint furniture, with no ornament except its own grace or usefulness, gave the place a home-like air, and chintz hangings, fresh and delicate as green leaves scattered upon snow could make them, seemed to shut out the world, securing the sweet privacy a happy woman loves. Gladys felt this instantly, and lifting her hand to draw the pretty draperies yet closer, discovered a new surprise, which touched her to the heart. Instead of looking out into the darkness of the autumn night, she found a little woodland nook imprisoned between the glass door and the deep window beyond, a veritable bit of the forest, with slender ferns nodding in their sleep, hardy vines climbing up a lichened stump to show their scarlet berries, pine needles prickling through the moss, rough arbutus leaves hiding coyly till spring should freshen their russet edges, acorns looking as if just dropped by some busy squirrel, and all manner of humble weeds, growing here as happily as when they carpeted the wood for any careless foot to tread upon. These dear familiar things were as grateful to Gladys as the sight of friendly faces, and throwing wide the door, she knelt down to breathe with childish eagerness the damp, fresh odors that came out to meet her. How sweet of him to make such a lovely nest for me, and then slip away before I could thank him, thought the tender-hearted creature, with tears in the eyes that dwelt delightedly upon the tremulous maiden hair bending to her touch, and the sturdy grasses waking up in this new summer. A sound of opening doors dispelled her reverie, and with girlish trepidation she hastened to smooth the waves of her bright hair, assume the one pretty dress she would accept from Olivia, and clasp the bridal pearls about her neck, then hastened down before the somewhat dreaded Mrs. Bland appeared. It pleased her to go wandering alone through the great house, warmed and lighted everywhere, for Helwise made this his world, and gathered about him every luxury which taste, caprice, or necessity demanded. A marvelously beautiful and varied home it seemed to simple Gladys, as she passed from picture gallery to music room, eyed with artless wonder the subdued magnificence of the salon, or paused enchanted in a conservatory whose crystal walls enclosed a fairyland of bloom and verdure. Here and there she came upon some characteristic whim or arrangement, which made her smile with amusement, or sigh with pity, remembering the recluse who tried to cheer his solitude by these devices. One recess held a single picture, going with the warm splendor of the East. A divan, a Persian rug, an amber-mouthed narghileh, and a Turkish coffee service, all gold and scarlet, completed the illusion. In another shadowy nook tinkled a little fountain, guarded by one white-limbed nymph, who seemed to watch with placid interest the curious sea creatures peopling the basin below. The third showed a study chair, a shaded lamp, and certain favorite books, left open, as if to be taken up again when the mood returned. In one of these places Gladys lingered with fresh compassion stirring at her heart, though it looked the least inviting of them all. Behind the curtains of a window looking out upon the broad street on which the mansion faced, stood a single chair and nothing more. "He shall not be so lonely now, if I can interest or amuse him," thought Gladys, as she looked at the worn spot in the carpet, the crumpled cushion on the window ledge, mute witnesses that Helwise felt drawn toward his kin, and found some solace in watching the activity he could no longer share. Knowing that she should find him in the library, where most of his time was spent, she soon wended her way thither. The door stood hospitably open, and as she approached she saw the two men standing together, marked as never before the sharp contrast between them, and felt a glow of wifely pride in the young husband whom she was learning to love with all the ardor of a pure and tender soul. Kennerus was talking eagerly as he turned the leaves of a thin manuscript which lay between them. Helwise listened, with his eyes fixed on the speaker so intently that it startled the newcomer when, without a sound to warn him of her approach, he turned suddenly upon her with a smile which dazzled, without warming, those on whom it was shed. "I have been chiding this capricious fellow for the haste which spoils the welcome I hope to give you, but I pardon him, since he brings the sunshine with him," he said, going to meet her, with genuine pleasure in his face. "I could not have a kinder welcome, sir. I was glad to come. Felix feared you might be needing him." "So duty brought him back a week too soon? A poet's honeymoon should be a long one. I regret to be the cause of its abridgment." Something in the satirical glimmer of his eye made Gladys glance at her husband, who spoke out frankly. "There were other reasons. Gladys hates a crowd, and so do I. Bad weather made it impossible to be romantic, so we thought it best to come home and be comfortable. I trust you will be, but I have little to offer, since the attractions of half a dozen cities could not satisfy you." "Indeed, we should be most ungrateful if we were not happy here," cried Gladys eagerly. "Only let me be useful as well as happy, else I shall not deserve this lovely home you give us." She is anxious to begin her ministrations, and I can recommend her, for she is quick to learn one's ways, patient with one's whims, fruitful in charming devices for amusement. "And the best of comrades," said Kennerus, drawing her to him, with a look more grateful than fond. From that speech, and other signs, I infer that Felix is about to leave me to your tender mercies, and fall to work upon his new book, since it seems he could not resist making poetry when he should have been making love. "Are you not jealous of the rival who steals him from you, even before the honeymoon has set?" asked Helwise, touching the little manuscript before him. "Not if she makes him great, and I can make him happy," answered Gladys, with an air of perfect content and trust. "I warn you the muse is a jealous mistress, and will often rob you of him. Are you ready to give him up and resign yourself to more prosaic companionship?" "Why need I give him up? He says I do not disturb him when he writes. He allowed me to sit beside him while he made these lovely songs, and watch them grow. He even let me help with a word sometimes, and I copied the verses fairly, that he might see how beautiful they were. Did I not, Felix?" Gladys spoke with such innocent pride, and looked up in her husband's face so gratefully, that he could not but thank her with a caress, as he said, laughing, "Ah, that was only play. I've had my holiday, and now I must work at a task in which no one can help me. Come and see the den where I shut myself up when the divine frenzy seizes me. Mr. Helwise is jailer, and only lets me out when I have done my stint." Full of some pleasurable excitement, Kennerus led his wife across the room, threw open a door, and bade her look in. Like a curious child, she peeped, but only saw a small, bare cabinet de travail. "No room, you see, even for a little thing like you. None dare enter here without my keeper's leave. Remember that, else you may fare like Bluebeard's Fatima." Kennerus spoke gaily, and turned a key in the door with a warning click, as he glanced over his shoulder at Helwise. Gladys did not see the look, but something in his words seemed to disturb her. "I do not like this place. It is close and dark. I think I shall not want to come, even if you are here." And waiting for no reply, she stepped out from the chill of the unused room, as if glad to escape. "Mysterious intuition. She felt that we had a skeleton in here, though it is such a little one," whispered Kennerus, with an uneasy laugh. "Such a sensitive plant will fare ill between us, I am afraid," answered Helwise, as he followed her, leaving the other to open drawers and settle papers, like one eager to begin his work. Gladys was standing in the full glare of the fire, as if its cheerful magic could exorcise all dark fancies. Helwise eyed the white figure for an instant, feeling that his lonely hearthstone had acquired a new charm, then joined her, saying quietly, "This is a place where Felix and I have lived together for nearly 2 years. Do you like it?" "More than I can tell. It does not seem strange to me, for he has often described it, and when I thought of coming here, I was more curious to see this room than any other. It will be all the pleasanter henceforth if Felix can spare you to me sometimes. Come and see the corner I have prepared, hoping to tempt you here when he shuts us out. It used to be his, so you will like it, I think." Helwise paced slowly down the long room, Gladys beside him, saying as she looked about her hungrily, "So many books, and doubtless you have read them all?" "Not quite, but you may if you will. See, here is your place. Come often, and be sure you never will disturb me." But one book lay on the little table, and its white cover, silver-lettered, shone against the dark cloth so invitingly that Gladys took it up, glowing with pleasure as she read her own name upon the volume she knew and loved so well. "For me? You knew that nothing else would be so beautiful and precious. Sir, why are you so generous?" "It amuses me to do these little things, and you must humor me, as Felix does. You shall pay for them in your own coin, so there need be no sense of obligation. Rest satisfied, I shall get the best of the bargain." Before she could reply, a servant appeared, announced dinner, and vanished as noiselessly as he came. This has been a bachelor establishment so long that we are grown careless. If you will pardon all deficiencies of costume, we will not delay installing Madame Canaris in the place she does us the honor to fill. "But I am not the mistress, sir. Please change nothing. My place at home was a very humble one. I am afraid I cannot fill the new one as I ought," stammered Gladys, somewhat dismayed at the prospect which the new name and duty suggested. "You will have no care except of us. Mrs. Bland keeps the machinery running smoothly, and we lead a very quiet life. My territory ends at that door. All beyond is yours. I chiefly haunt this wing, but sometimes roam about below stairs a little, a very harmless ghost, so do not be alarmed if you should meet me." Helwise spoke lightly, and tapped at the door of the den as he passed. "Come out, slave of the pen, and be fed." Canaris came, wearing a preoccupied air, and sauntered after them, as Helwise led the new mistress to her place, shy and rosy, but resolved to do honor to her husband at all cost. Her first act, however, gave them both a slight shock of surprise, for the instant they were seated, Gladys laid her hands together, bent her head, and whispered grace, as if obeying a natural impulse to ask heaven's blessing on the first bread she broke in her new home. The effect of the devoutly simple act was characteristically shown by the three observers. The servant paused, with an uplifted cover in his hand, respectfully astonished. Canaris looked intensely annoyed, and Helwise leaned back with the suggestion of a shrug as he glanced critically from the dimpled hands to the nugget of gold that shone against the bended neck. The instant she looked up, the man whisked off the silver cover with an air of relief. Canaris fell upon his bread like a hungry boy, and Helwise tranquilly began to talk. "Was the surprise Felix prepared for you a satisfactory one? Olivia and I took pleasure in obeying his directions." "It was lovely. I have not thanked him yet, but I shall. You also, sir, in some better way than words. What made you think of it?" she asked, looking at Canaris with a mute request for pardon of her involuntary offense. Glad to rush into speech, Canaris gave at some length the history of his fancy to reproduce as nearly as he could the little room at home, which she had described to him with regretful minuteness, for she had sold everything to pay the debts which were the sole legacy her father left her. While they talked, Helwise, who ate little, was observing both. Gladys looked more girlish than ever, in spite of the mingled dignity and anxiety her quiet but timid air betrayed. Canaris seemed in high spirits, talking rapidly, laughing often, and glancing about him, as if glad to be again where nothing inharmonious disturbed his taste and comfort. Not till dessert was on the table, however, did he own, in words, the feeling of voluptuous satisfaction, which was enhanced by the memory that he had been rash enough to risk the loss of all. "It is not so very terrible, you see, Gladys. You eat and drink like a bird, but I know you enjoy this as much as I do, after those detestable hotels," he said, detecting an expression of relief in his young wife's face, as the noiseless servant quitted the room for the last time. "Indeed I do. It is so pleasant to have all one's senses gratified at once, and the common duties of life made beautiful and easy," answered Gladys, surveying with feminine appreciation the well-appointed table, which had that air of accustomed elegance so grateful to fastidious taste. "Aha! This little ascetic of mine will become a sybarite yet, and agree with me that enjoyment is a duty," exclaimed Canaris, looking very like a young Bacchus as he held up his wine to watch its rich color and inhale its bouquet with zest. "The more delicate the senses, the more delicate the delight. I suspect Madame finds her grapes and water as delicious as you do your olives and old wine," said Helwise, finding a still more refined satisfaction than either in the pretty contrast between the purple grapes and the white fingers that pulled them apart, the softly curling lips that were the rosier for their temperate draughts, and the unspoiled simplicity of the girl sitting there in pearls and shimmering silk. When one has known poverty and the sad shifts which make it seem mean as well as hard, perhaps one does unduly value these things. I hope I shall not, but I do find them very tempting," she said, thoughtfully eyeing the new scene in which she found herself. Helwise seemed to be absently listening to the musical chime of silver against glass, but he made a note of that hope, wondering if hardship had given her more of its austere virtue than it had her husband. "How shall you resist temptation?" he asked curiously. "I shall work. This is dangerously pleasant, so let me begin at once, and sing, while you take your coffee in the drawing-room. I know the way. Come when you will, I shall be ready." And Gladys rose with the energetic expression which often broke through her native gentleness. Canaris held the door for her, and was about to resume his seat, when Helwise checked him. "We will follow at once. Was I not right in my prediction?" he asked, as they left the room together. "That we should soon tire of each other? You were wrong in that. I meant the ease with which you would soon learn to love. I have not learned yet." "Then this vivacity is a cloak for the pangs of remorse, is it?" And Helwise laughed incredulously. "No, it is the satisfaction I already feel in the atonement I mean to make. I have a grand idea. I, too, shall work, and give Gladys reason to be proud of me, if nothing more." Something of her own energy was in his mien, and it became him. But Helwise quenched the noble ardor by saying coldly, "I see. It is the old passion under a new name. May your virtuous aspirations be blessed." End of chapter 8.
Chapter 9 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. Chapter 9. Helwise was right, and Canaris found that his sudden marriage did stimulate public interest wonderfully. There had always been something mysterious about this brilliant young man and his relations with his patron, who was as silent as a sphinx regarding his past, and tantalizingly enigmatical about his plans and purposes for the future. The wildest speculations were indulged in. Many believed them to be father and son. Others searched vainly for the true motive of this charitable caprice, and everyone waited with curiosity to see the end of it, all of which much amused Helwise, who cared nothing for the world's opinion, and found his sense of humor tickled by the ludicrous idea of himself in the new role of benefactor. The romance seemed quite complete when it was known that the young poet had brought home a wife whose talent, youth, and isolation seemed to render her peculiarly fitted for his mate. Though love was lacking, vanity was strong in Canaris, and this was gratified by the commendation bestowed on the new ornament he wore, for as such simple Gladys was considered, and shone with reflected lustre, her finer gifts and graces quite eclipsed by his more conspicuous and self-asserting ones. With unquestioning docility she gave herself into his hands, following where he led her, obeying his lightest wish, and loving him with a devotion which kept alive regretful tenderness when it should have cherished a loyal love. He gladly took her into all the gaiety which for a time surrounded them, and she enjoyed it with a girl's fresh delight. He showed her wise and witty people whom she admired or loved, and she looked and listened with an enthusiast's wonder. He gave her all he had to give, novelty and pleasure, though the one had lost its gloss for him, and too much of the other he was forced to accept from Helwise's hands. But through all the experiences that now rapidly befell her, Gladys was still herself, innocently happy, staunchly true, characteristically independent, a mountain stream keeping its waters pure and bright, though mingled with a swift and turbid river which was hurrying it towards the sea. Curiosity being satisfied, society soon found some fresher novelty to absorb it. Women still admired Canaris, but marriage lessened his attractions for them. Men still thought him full of promise, but were fast forgetting the first successful effort which had won their applause, and the young lion found that he must roar loud and often if he would not be neglected. Shutting himself into his cell, he worked with hopeful energy for several months, often coming out weary, but excited with the joyful labor of creation. At such times there was no prose anywhere, for heaven and earth were glorified by the light of that inner world where imagination reigns and all things are divine. Then he would be in the gayest spirits, and carry Gladys off to some hour of pleasant relaxation at theatre, opera, or ball, where flattery refreshed or emulation inspired him, and next day would return to his task with redoubled vigor. At other times his fickle mistress deserted him. Thought would not soar, language would not sing, poetry fled, and life was unutterably flat, stale, and unprofitable. Then it was Gladys who took possession of him, lured him out for a brisk walk, or a long drive into a wholesomer world than that into which he took her. sung weary brain to sleep with the sweetest lullabies of brother bards, or made him merry by the display of a pretty wit, which none but he knew she could exert. With wifely patience and womanly tact, she managed her wayward but beloved lord, till despondency yielded to her skill, and the buoyant spirit of hope took him by the hand, and led him to his work again. In the intervals between these fits of intellectual intoxication and succeeding depression, Gladys devoted herself to Helvyse with a faithfulness which surprised him and satisfied her, for, as she said, her bread tasted bitter if she did not earn it. He had expected to be amused, perhaps interested, but not so charmed by this girl, who possessed only a single talent, a modest share of beauty, and a mind as untrained as a beautiful but neglected garden. This last was the real attraction, for finding her hungry for knowledge, he did not hesitate to test her taste and try her mental mettle by allowing her free range of a large and varied library. Though not a scholar, in the learned sense of the word, he had the eager, skeptical nature which interrogates all things, yet believes only in itself. This had kept him roaming solitarily up and down the earth for years, observing men and matters. Now it drove him to books, and as suffering and seclusion wrought upon body and brain, his choice of mute companions changed from the higher, healthier class to those who, like himself, leaned towards the darker, sadder side of human nature. Lawless here, as elsewhere, he let his mind wander at will, as once he had let his heart, learning too late that both are sacred gifts and cannot safely be tampered with. All was so fresh and wonderful to Gladys that her society grew very attractive to him, and pleasant as it was to have her wait upon him with quiet zeal, or watch her busied in her own corner, studying or sewing with the little basket beside her which gave such a homelike air, it was still pleasanter to have her sit and read to him while he watched this face, so intelligent, yet so soft, studied this mind, at once sensitive and sagacious, this nature, both serious and ardent. It gave a curious charm to his old favourites when she read them, and many hours he listened contentedly to the voice whose youth made Montaigne's worldly wisdom seem the shrewder, whose music gave a certain sweetness to Voltaire's bitter wit or Carlyle's rough wisdom, where pitying wonder added pathos to the melancholy brilliancy of Heine and De Quincey. Equally fascinated to him, and far more dangerous to her, were George Sand's passionate romances, Goethe's dramatic novels, Hugo and Sue's lurid word pictures of suffering and sin, the haunted world of Shakespeare and Dante, the poetry of Byron, Browning, and Poe. Rich food and strong wine for a girl of 18, and Gladys soon felt the effects of such a diet, though it was hard to resist when duty seconded inclination and ignorance hid the peril. She often paused to question with eager lips, to wipe wet eyes, to protest with indignant warmth, or to shiver with the pleasurable pain of a child who longs, yet dreads, to hear an exciting story to the end. Helvyse answered willingly, if not always wisely, enjoyed the rapid unfolding of the woman, and would not deny himself any indulgence of this new whim, though conscious that the snowdrop, transplanted suddenly from the fresh free springtime, could not live in this close air without suffering. This was the double life Gladys now began to lead. Heart and mind were divided between the two, who soon absorbed every feeling, every thought. To the younger man she was a teacher, to the elder a pupil. In the one world she ruled, in the other served. Unconsciously Canaris stirred emotion to its depths. Consciously Helvyse stimulated intellect to its heights, while the soul of the woman, receiving no food from either, seemed to sit apart in the wilderness of its new experience, tempted by evil as well as sustained by good spirits, who guard their own. One evening this divided mastery was especially felt by Helvyse, who watched the young man's influence over his wife with a mixture of interest and something like jealousy, as it was evidently fast becoming stronger than his own. Sitting in his usual place, he saw Gladys flit about the room, brushing up the hearth, brightening the lamps, and putting by the finished books, as if the day's duties were all done, the evening's rest and pleasure honestly earned, eagerly waited for. He well knew that this pleasure consisted in carrying Canaris away to her own domain, or, if that were impossible, she would sit silently looking at him while he read or talked in his fitful fashion on any subject his master chose to introduce. The desire to make her forget the husband, whose neglect would have sorely grieved her if his genius had not been his excuse in her eyes for many faults, possessed Helwyse that night, and he amused himself by the effort, becoming more intent with each failure. As the accustomed hour drew near, Gladys took her place on the footstool before the chair set ready for Felix, and fell a musing, with her eyes on the newly replenished fire. Above, the unignited fuel lay black and rough, with here and there a deep rift opening to the red core beneath, while to and fro danced many-colored flames, as if bent on some eager quest. Many flashed up the chimney and were gone. Others died solitarily in dark corners, where no heat fed them, and some vanished down the chasms to the fiery world below. One golden spire, tremulous and translucent, burned with a brilliance which attracted the eye, and when a wandering violet flame joined it, Gladys followed their motions with interest, seeing in them images of Felix and herself, for childish fancy and womanly insight met and mingled in all she thought and felt. Forgetting that she was not alone, she leaned forward to watch what became of them, as wedded flames flickered here and there, now violet, now yellow. But the brighter always seemed the stronger, and the sad-colored one to grow more and more golden, as if yielding to its sunshiny mate. "I hope they will fly up together, out into the wild starry sky, which is their eternity, perhaps," she thought, smiling at her own eagerness. But no, the golden flame flew up, and left the other to take on many shapes and colors as it wandered here and there, till, just as it glowed with a splendid crimson, Gladys was forced to hide her dazzled eyes and look no more. Turning her flushed face away, she found Helwyse watching her as intently as she had watched the fire, and reminded of his presence, she glanced toward the empty chair with an impatient sigh for Felix. "You are tired," he said, answering the sigh. "Mrs. Bland told me what a notable housewife you are, and how you helped her set the upper regions to rights today. I fear you did too much." "Oh, no, I enjoyed it heartily. I asked for something to do, and she allowed me to examine and refold the treasures you keep in the great carved wardrobe, lest moths or damp or dust had hurt the rich stuffs, curious coins, and lovely ornaments stored there. I never saw so many pretty things before," she answered, betraying by her sudden animation the love of pretty things which is one of the strongest of feminine foibles. He smiled, well pleased. "Olivia calls that quaint press from Brittany my bazaar, for there I have collected the spoils of my early wanderings, and when I want a cadeau for a fair friend, I find it without trouble. I saw in what exquisite order you left my shelves, and as you were not with me to choose, I brought away several trifles, more curious than costly, hoping to find a thank-offering among them." As he spoke, he opened one of the deep drawers in the writing-table, as if to produce some gift. But Gladys said, hastily, "You are very kind, sir, but these fine things are altogether too grand for me. The pleasure of looking at and touching them is reward enough. Unless you will tell me about them, it must be interesting to know what places they came from." Feeling in the mood for it, Helwyse described to her an Eastern bazaar, so graphically that she soon forgot Felix, and sat looking up as if she actually saw and enjoyed the splendors he spoke of. Lustrous silks sotanas were to wear, misty muslins, into whose embroidery some dark-skinned woman's life was wrought, cashmeres, many-hued as rainbows, odorous woods and spices that filled the air with fragrance never blown from western hills, amber, like drops of frozen sunshine, fruits, which brought visions of vineyards, olive groves, and lovely palms dropping their honeyed clusters by desert wells, skins mooned and barred with black upon the tawny velvet that had lain in jungles or glided with deathful stealthiness among the track of human feet, ivory tusks that had felled Asiatic trees, gored fierce enemies, or meekly lifted princes to their seats. These, and many more, he painted rapidly, and as he ended, shook out of its folds a gauzy fabric, starred with silver, which he threw over her head, pointing to the mirror set in the door of the armoire behind her. "See if that is not too pretty to refuse. Felix would certainly be inspired if you appeared before him shimmering like Sulieika, when Haydam says to her, 'Here, take this, with the pure and silver streaking, and wind it, darling, round and round for me. What is your highness? style scarce worth the speaking. When thou dost look, I am great as he. Gladys did look, and saw how beautiful it made her. But, though she did not understand the words he quoted, the name suggested a sultan and his slave, and she did not like either the idea or the expression with which Helvyse regarded her. Throwing off the gauzy veil, she refolded and put it by, saying, in that decided little way of hers, which was prettier than petulance, "Mr. Haddam does not need that sort of inspiration, and would rather see his Zuliaka in a plain gown of his choosing than dressed in all the splendors of the East by any other hand." "Come, then, we must find some better souvenir of your visit, for I never let anyone go away empty-handed." And with that he dipped again into the drawer, and held up a pretty bracelet, explaining, as he offered it with unruffled composure, though she eyed it askance, attracted yet reluctant, a charming picture of doubt and desire, "Here are the 9 Muses, cut in many-tinted lava. See how well the workman suited the color to the attribute of each muse. Urania is blue, Erato this soft pink, Terpsichore violet, Euterpe and Thalia black and white, and the others these fine shades of yellow, dun, and drab. That pleases you, I know, so let me put it on." It did please her, and she stretched out her hand to accept it, gratified, yet conscious all the while of the antagonistic spirit which often seized her when with Helvyse. He put on the bracelet with a satisfied air, but the clasp was imperfect, and at the first turn of the round wrist the 9 Muses fell to the ground. "It is too heavy. I am not made to wear handcuffs of any sort, you see. They will not stay on, so it is of no use to try." And Gladys picked up the trinket with an odd sense of relief, though poor Erato was cracked, and Thalia, like Fielding's fair Amelia, had a broken nose. She rose to lay it on the table, and as she turned away her eye went to the clock, as if reproaching herself for that brief forgetfulness of her husband. Half amused, half annoyed, and bent on having his own way, even in so small a thing as this, Helvyse drew up a chair, and setting a Japanese tray upon the table, said, invitingly, "Come and see if these are more to your taste, since fine raiment and foolish ornaments fail to tempt you." "Oh, how curious and beautiful!" cried Gladys, looking down upon a collection of Hindu gods and goddesses, in ebony or ivory, some hideous, some lovely, all carved with wonderful delicacy, and each with its appropriate symbol. Vishnu in his serpent, Brahma in the sacred lotus, Siva with 7 faces, Krishna the destroyer with many mouths, Varun, god of the ocean, and Kama the Indian Cupid, bearing his bow of sugar-cane strung with bees to typify love's sting as well as sweetness. This last Gladys examined longest, and kept in her hand as if it charmed her, for the minute face of the youth was beautiful, the slender figure full of grace, and the ivory spotless. "You chose him for your idol, and well you may, for he looks like Felix. Mine, if I have one, is Siva, goddess of fate, ugly but powerful." "I will have no idol, not even Felix, though I sometimes fear I may make one of him before I know it." And Gladys put back the little figure with a guilty look, as she confessed the great temptation that beset her. "You are wise. Idols are apt to have feet of clay, and tumble down in spite of our blind adoration. Better be a Buddhist, and have no god but our own awakened thought. The highest wisdom, as it is called," said Helvyse, who had lately been busy with the Sakyamuni, and regarded all religions with calm impartiality. "These are false gods, and we are done with them, since we know the true one," began Gladys, understanding him, for she had read aloud the life of Gautama Buddha, and enjoyed it as a legend, while he found its mystic symbolism attractive, and nothing repellent in its idolatry. "But do we? How can you prove it?" "It needs no proving. The knowledge of it was born in me, grows with my growth, and is the life of my life," cried Gladys, out of the fullness of that natural religion which requires no revelation except such as life brings to strengthen and purify it. "All are not so easily satisfied as you," he said, in the sceptical tone which always tried both her patience and her courage, for, womanlike, she could feel the truth of things, but but could not reason about them. He saw her face kindle, and added, rapidly, having a mind to try how firmly planted the faith of the pretty Puritan was, "Most of us agree that Allah exists in some form or other, but we fall out about who is the true prophet. You choose Jesus of Nazareth for yours. I rather incline to this Indian saint. They are not unlike. This prince left all to devote his life to the redemption of mankind, suffered persecutions and temptations, had his disciples, and sent out the first apostles of whom we hear. Was a teacher, with his parables, miracles, and belief in transmigration or immortality. His doctrine is almost the same as the other, and the 6 virtues which secure nirvana, or heaven, are charity, purity, patience, courage, contemplation, and wisdom. Come, why not take him for a model?" Gladys listened with a mixture of perplexity and pain in her face, and her hand went involuntarily to the little cross which she always wore. But though her eye was troubled, her voice was steady as she answered earnestly, "Because I have a nobler one. My prince left a greater throne than yours to serve mankind, suffered and resisted more terrible persecution and temptation, sent out wiser apostles, taught clearer truth, and preached an immortality for all. Yours died peaceful in the arms of his friends, mine on a cross, and though he came later, he has saved more souls than Buddha. Sir, I know little about those older religions. I am not wise enough even to argue about my own. I can only believe in it, love it, and hold fast to it, since it is all I need." "How can you tell till you try others? This, now, is a fine one, if we are not too bigoted to look into it fairly. Wise men who have done so say that no faith, not even the Christian, has exercised so powerful an influence on the diminution of crime as the old, simple doctrine of Sakyamuni, and this is the only great historic religion which has not taken the sword to put down its enemies. Can you say as much for yours?" "No, but it is worth fighting for, and I would fight as the Maid of Orleans did for France, for that is my country. Can you say of your faith that it sustained you in sorrow, made you happy in loneliness, saved you from temptation, taught, guided, blessed you day by day with unfailing patience, wisdom, and love? I think you cannot. Then why try to take mine away till you can give me a better?" Seldom was Gladys so moved as now, for she felt as if he was about to meddle with her holy of holies, and without stopping to reason, she resisted the attempt, sure that he would harm, not help, her, since neither his word nor example had done Felix any good. Helvéice admired her all the more for her resistance, and thought her unusually lovely as she stood there flushed and fervent with her plea for the faith that was so dear to her. "Why, indeed, you would make an excellent martyr and enjoy it. Pity that you have no chance of it, and so of being canonized as a saint afterwards. That is decidedly your line. Then you won't have any of my gods, not even this one?" he asked, holding up the handsome Kama with a smile. "No, not even that. I will have only one God, and you may keep your idols for those who believe in them. My faith may not be the oldest, but it is the best, if one may judge of the two religions by the happiness and peace they give," answered Gladys, taking refuge in a very womanly, yet most convincing argument, she thought, as she pointed to the mirror which reflected both figures in its clear depths. Helvéice looked, and though without an atom of vanity, the sight could not be but trying, the contrast was so great between her glad, young face and his, so melancholy and prematurely old. "Satma Tama, truth and darkness," he muttered to himself, adding aloud, with a vengeful sort of satisfaction in shocking her pious nature, "But I have no religion, so that defiant little speech is quite thrown away, my friend." It did shock her, for, though she had suspected the fact, there was something dreadful in hearing him confess it, in a tone which proved his sincerity. "Mr. Helvéice, do you really mean that you believe in nothing invisible and divine? No life beyond this? No God, no Christ to bless and save?" she asked, hardly knowing how to put the question as she drew back dismayed, but still incredulous. "Yes." He was both surprised and rather annoyed to find that it cost him an effort to give even that short answer, with those innocent eyes looking so anxiously up at him, full of a sad wonder, then dim with sudden dew, as she said eagerly, forgetting everything but a great compassion, "Oh, sir, it is impossible! You think so now, but when you love and trust some human creature more than yourself, then you will find that you do believe in him who gives such happiness, and be glad to own it." "Perhaps. Meanwhile, you will not make me happy by letting me give you anything. Why is it, Gladys?" The black brows were knit, and he looked impatient with himself or her. She saw it, and exclaimed with the sweetest penitence, "Give me your pardon for speaking so frankly. I mean no disrespect, but I cannot help it when you say such things, though I know that gratitude should keep me silent." "I like it. Do not take yourself to task for that, or trouble about me. There are many roads, and sooner or later we shall all reach heaven, I suppose. If there is one," he added, with a shrug, which spoiled the smile that went before. End of Chapter 9. Recording by Todd.
Chapter 10 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Allison. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. 10. Gladys stood silent for a moment, with her eyes fixed on the little figures, longing for wisdom to convince this man, whom she regarded with mingled pity, admiration, and distrust, that he could not walk by his own light alone. He guessed the impulse that kept her there, longed to have her stay, and felt a sudden desire to reinstate himself in her good opinion. That wish, or the hope to keep her by some new and still more powerful allurement, seemed to actuate him as he hastily thrust the gods and goddesses out of sight, and opened another drawer, with a quick glance over his shoulder towards that inner room. At that instant the clock struck, and Gladys started, saying in a tone of fond despair, "Where is Felix? Will he never come?" "I heard him raging about some time ago, but perfect silence followed, so I suspect he caught the tormenting word, idea, or fancy, and is busy penning it," answered Helwise, shutting the drawer as suddenly as he opened it, with a frown which Gladys did not see, for she had turned away, forgetting him and his salvation in the one absorbing interest of her life. "How long it takes to write a poem! 3 whole months, for he began in September, and it was not to be a long one, he said." "He means this to be a masterpiece, so labors like a galley slave, and can find no rest till it is done. Good practice, but to little purpose, I am afraid. Poetry, even the best, is not profitable nowadays, I am told," added Helwise, speaking with a sort of satisfaction which he could not conceal. "Who cares for the profit? It is the fame Felix wants and works for," answered Gladys, defending the absent with wifely warmth. "True, but he would not reject the fortune if it came. He is not one of the ethereal sort, who can live on glory and a crust. His gingerbread must not only be gilded, but solid and well spiced beside. You adore your poet. Respect also the worldly wisdom of your spouse, madame." When Helwise sneered, Gladys was silent. So now she mused again, leaning on the high back of the chair which she longed to see occupied. He mused also, with his eyes upon the fire, fingers idly tapping, and a furtive smile round his mouth, as if some purpose was taking shape in that busy brain of his. Suddenly he spoke, in a tone of kindly interest, well knowing where her thoughts were, and anxious to end her weary waiting. "Perhaps the poor fellow has fallen asleep, tired out with striving after immortality. Go and wake him if you will, for it is time he rested." "May I? He does not like to be disturbed, but I fear he is ill. He has eaten scarcely anything for days, and looks so pale it troubles me. I will peep first, and if he is busy, creep away without a word." Stepping toward the one forbidden yet most fascinating spot in all the house, she softly opened the door and looked in. Canaris was there, apparently asleep, as Helwise thought, for his head lay on his folded arms, as if both were weary. Glancing over her shoulder, with a nod and a smile, Gladys went in, anxious to wake and comfort him, for the little room looked solitary, dark, and cold, with dead ashes on the hearth, the student lamp burning dimly, and the food she had brought him hours ago still standing untasted among the blotted sheets strewn all about. At her first touch he looked up, and she was frightened by the expression of his face. It was so desperately miserable. "Dear, what is it?" she asked quickly, with her arms about him, as if defying the unknown trouble to reach him there. "Disappointment, nothing else," and he leaned his head against her, grateful for sympathy since she could give no other help. You mean your book, which does not satisfy you even yet?" she said, interpreting the significance of the weary yet restless look he wore. "It never will. I have toiled and tried with all my heart and soul and mind, if ever a man did. But I cannot do it, Gladys. It torments me, and I cannot escape from it, because though it is all here in my brain, it will not be expressed in words. Do not try any more. Rest now, and by perhaps it will be easier. You have worked too hard and are worn out. Forget the book, and come and let me take care of you. It breaks my heart to see you so." "I was doing it for your sake, all for you, and I thought this time it would be very good, since my purpose was a just and generous one. But it is not, and I hate it." With a passionate gesture, Canaris hurled a pile of manuscript into the further corner of the room, and pushed his wife from him, as if she, too, were an affliction and a disappointment. It grieved her bitterly, but she would not be repulsed, and holding fast in both her own the hand that was about to grasp another sheaf of papers, she cried, with a tone of tender authority, which both controlled and touched him, "No, no, you shall not, Felix. Put me away, but do not spoil the dear book. It has cost us both too much." "Not you. Forgive me, it is myself with whom I am vexed," and Canaris penitently kissed the hands that held his, remembering that she could not know the true cause of his effort and regret. "I shall be jealous if I find that I have given you up so long in vain. I must have something to repay me for the loss of your society all this weary time. I have worked to fill your place. Give me my reward." "Have you missed me, then? I thought you happy enough with Hellwise and the books." "Missed you? Happy enough? Oh, Felix, you do not know me if you think I can be happy without you." "He is kind, but only a friend, and all the books in the wide world are not as much to me as the one you treat so cruelly." She clasped tightly the hand she held, and looked into his face with eyes full of unutterable love. Such tender flattery could not but soothe. Such cheerful reproach failed to soften a far prouder, harder man than Canaris. "What reward will you have?" he asked, making an effort to be cheerful for her sake. "Eat, drink, and rest. Then read me every word you have written. I am no critic, but I would try to be impartial. Love makes even the ignorant wise, and I shall see the beauty which I know is in it." "I put you there, or tried, so truth and beauty should be in it. Sometime you shall hear it, but not now. I could not read it tonight, perhaps never. It is such a poor, pale shadow of the thing I meant it to be." "Let me read it," said a voice behind them, and Hellwise stood upon the threshold, wearing his most benignant aspect. "You?" ejaculated Canaris, while Gladys shrunk a little, as if the proposition did not please her. "Why not? Young poets never read their own verses well, yet what could be more soothing to the most timorous or vain than to hear them read by an admiring and sympathetic friend? Come, let me have my reward, as well as Gladys." And Hellwise laid his hand upon the unscattered pile of manuscript. "A penance, rather. It is so blurred, so rough, you could not read it. Then the fatigue," began Canaris, pleased yet reluctant still. "I can read anything, make rough places smooth, and not tire, for I have a great interest in this story. He has shown me some of it, and it is good." Hellwise spoke to Gladys, and his last words conquered her reluctance, whetted her curiosity. He looked at Canaris, and his glance inspired hope. His offer tempted, for his voice could make music of anything. His praise would be both valuable and cheering. "Let him, Felix, since he is so kind, and I so impatient, I do not want to wait." And Gladys went to gather up the leaves which had flown wildly about the room. "Leave those. I will sort them while you begin. The first part is all here. I am sick of it, and so will you be before you are through. Go, love, or I may revoke permission, and make the bonfire yet." Canaris laughed as he waved her away, and Gladys, seeing that the cloud had lifted, willingly obeyed, lingering only to give a touch to the dainty luncheon, which was none the worse for being cold. "Dear, eat and drink, then my feast will be the sweeter." "I will. I'll eat and drink stupendously when you are gone. I wish you bon appetit," he said, filling the glass and smiling as he drank. Contented now, Gladys hurried away, to find Hellwise already seated by the study table, with the manuscript laid open before him. He looked up, wearing an expression of such pleasurable excitement that it augured well for what was coming, and she slipped into the chair beside the one set ready for Canaris on the opposite side of the hearth, still hoping he would come and take it. Hellwise began, and soon she forgot everything, carried away by the smoothly flowing current of the story, which he read so well, a metrical romance such as many a lover might have imagined in the first inspiration of the great passion, but few could have painted with such skill. A very human story, but all the truer and sweeter for that fact. The men and women in it were full of vitality and color. Their faces spoke, hearts beat, words glowed, and they seemed to live before the listener's eye, as if endowed with eloquent flesh and blood. Gladys forgot their creator utterly, but Helwise did not, and even while reading on, with steadily increasing effect, glanced now and then towards that inner room, where, after a moment of unnecessary bustle, perfect silence reigned. Presently a shadow flickered on the ceiling, a shadow bent as if listening eagerly, though not a sound betrayed its approach as it seemed to glide and vanish behind the tall screen which stood before the door. Gladys saw nothing, her face being intent upon the reader, her thoughts absorbed in following the heart history of the woman in whom she could not help finding a likeness to herself. Helwise saw the shadow, however, and laughed inwardly, as if to see the singer irresistibly drawn by his own music. But no visible smile betrayed this knowledge, and the tale went on with deepening power and pathos, till at its most passionate point he paused. "Go on! Oh, pray go on!" cried Gladys breathlessly. "Are you not tired of it?" asked Helwise with a keen look. "No, no. You are? Then let me read." "Not I, but there is no more here. Ask Felix if we may go on." "I must, I will. Where is he?" And Gladys hurried round the screen to find Canaris flung down anyway upon a seat, looking almost as excited as herself. "Ah," she cried delightedly, "you could not keep away. You know that it is good, and you are glad and proud, although you will not own it." "Am I? Are you?" he asked, reading the answer in her face before she could whisper, with the look of mingled awe and adoration which she always wore when speaking of him as a poet. "Never can I tell you what I feel. It almost frightens me to find how well you know me and yourself, and other hearts like ours. What gives you this wonderful power and shows you how to use it?" "Don't praise it too much, or I shall wish I had destroyed, instead of resorting, the second part for you to hear." Kenner spoke almost roughly, and rose, as if about to go and do it now, but Gladys caught his hand, saying gaily, as she drew him out into the firelight with persuasive energy, "That you shall never do, but come and enjoy it with us. You need not be so modest, for you know you like it. Now I am perfectly happy." She looked so as she saw her husband sink into the tall back chair, and took her place beside him, laughing at the almost comic mixture of sternness, resignation, and impatience betrayed by his set lips, silent acquiescence, and excited eyes. "Now we are ready," and Gladys folded her hands with the rapturous contentment of a child at its first fairy spectacle. "All but the story. I will fetch it," and Helwise stepped quickly behind the screen before either could stir. Gladys half rose, but Canaris drew her down again, whispering in an almost resentful tone, "Let him, if he will. You wait on him too much. I put the papers in order. He will read them easily enough." "Nay, do not be angry, dear. He does it to please me, and surely no one could read it better. I know you would feel too much to do it well," she answered, her hand in his, with its most soothing touch. There was no time for more. Helwise returned, and after a hasty resettling of the manuscript, read on, without pausing, to the story's end, as if unconscious of fatigue, and bent on doing justice to the power of the protégé whose success was his benefactor's best reward. At first Gladys glanced at her husband from time to time, but presently the living man beside her grew less real than that other, who, despite a new name and country, strange surroundings, and far different circumstances, was so unmistakably the same that she could not help feeling and following his fate to its close, with an interest almost as intense as if, in very truth, she saw Canaris going to his end. Her interest in the woman lessened, and was lost in her eagerness to have the hero worthy of the love she gave, the honor others felt for him, and, when the romance brought him to defeat and death, she was so wrought upon by this illusion that she fell into a passion of sudden tears, weeping as she had never wept before. Felix sat motionless, his hand over his eyes, lips closely folded, lest they should betray too much emotion, the irresistible conviction that it was good, strengthening every instant, till he felt only the fascination and excitement of an hour, which foretold others even more delicious. When the tale ended, the melodious voice grew silent, and nothing was heard but the eloquent sobbing of a woman. Words seemed unnecessary, and none were uttered for several minutes. Then Helwise asked briefly, "Shall we burn it?" As briefly Canaris answered, "No." And Gladys, quickly recovering the self-control so seldom lost, looked up with a face clear shining after rain, as she said in the emphatic tone of deepest feeling, "It would be like burning a live thing. But, Felix, you must not kill that man. I cannot have him die so. Let him live to conquer all his enemies, the worst in himself. Then, if you must end tragically, let the woman go. She would not care if he were safe." "But she is the heroine of the piece, and if it does not end with her lamenting over the fallen hero, the dramatic point is lost," said Helwise, for Canaris had sprung up and was walking restlessly about the room, as if the spirits he had evoked were too strong to be laid even by himself. "I know nothing about that, but I feel the moral point would be lost if it is not changed. Surely, powerful as pity is, a lofty admiration is better, and this poem would be nobler in every way if that man ends by living well than by dying ignominiously in spite of his courage. I cannot explain it, but I am sure it is so, and I will not let Felix spoil his best piece of work by such a mistake." "Then you like it? You would be happy if I changed and let it go before the world, for your sake more than for my own?" Canaris paused beside her, pale with some emotion stronger than gratified vanity or ambitious hope. Gladys thought it was love, and carried out of herself by the tender pride that overflowed her heart, it would not be controlled. She let an action, more eloquent than any words, express the happiness she was the first to feel, the homage she would be the first to pay. Kneeling before him, she clasped her hands together, and looked up at him with cheeks still wet, lips still tremulous, eyes still full of wonder, admiration, fervent gratitude, and love. In one usually so self-restrained as Gladys, such joyful abandonment was doubly captivating and impressive. Canaris felt it so, and lifting her up, pressed her to a heart whose loud throbbing thanked her, even while he gently turned her face away, as if he could not bear to see and receive such worship from so pure a source. The unexpected humility in his voice touched her strangely, and made her feel more deeply than ever how genuine was the genius which should yet make him great, as well as beloved. "I will do what you wish, for you see more clearly than I. You shall be happy, and I will be proud of doing it, even if no one else sees any good in my work." "They will, they must. It may not be the grandest thing you will ever do, but it is so human, it cannot fail to touch and charm, and to me that is as great an act as to astonish or dazzle by splendid learning or wonderful wit. Make it noble as well as beautiful, then people will love as well as praise you." "I will try, Gladys. I see now what I should have written, and, if I can, it shall be done." "I promised you inspiration, you remember. Have I not kept my word?" asked Helwise, forgotten and content to be forgotten until now. Canaris looked up quickly, but there was no gratitude in his face as he answered. With his hand on the head he pressed against his shoulder, and a certain subdued passion in his voice. "You have, not the highest inspiration, but if she is happy, it will atone for much." End of chapter 10.
Chapter 11 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. Chapter 11. And Gladys was happy, for a little while. Canaris labored doggedly till all was finished as she wished. Helwise lent the aid which commands celerity, and early in the new year the book came out, to win for itself and its author the admiration and regard she had prophesied. But while the outside world, with which she had little to do except through her husband, rejoiced over him and his work, she, in her own small world where he was all in all, was finding cause to wonder and grieve at the change which took place in him. "I have done my task. Now let me play," he said, and play he did, quite as energetically as he had worked, though to far less purpose. Praise seemed to intoxicate him, for he appeared to forget everything else and bask in its sunshine, as if he never could have enough of it. His satisfaction would have been called egregious vanity, had it not been so gracefully expressed, and the work done so excellent, that all agreed the young man had a right to be proud of it, and enjoy his reward as he pleased. He went out much, being again caressed and fêted to his heart's content, leaving Gladys to amuse Helwise, for a very little of this sort of gaiety satisfied her, and there was something painful to her in the almost feverish eagerness with which her husband sought and enjoyed excitement of all kinds. Glad and proud though she was, it troubled her to see him as utterly engrossed as if existence had no higher aim than the most refined and varied pleasure, and she began to feel that, though the task was done, she had not got him back again from that other mistress who seemed to have bewitched him with her dazzling charms. "He will soon have enough of it, and return to us none the worse. Remember how young he is, how natural that he should love pleasure overmuch when he gets it, since he has had so little hitherto," said Helwise, answering the silent trouble in the face of Gladys, for she never spoke of her daily increasing anxiety. but it does not seem to make him happy, and for that reason I sometimes think it cannot be the best kind of pleasure for him," answered Gladys, remembering how flushed and weary he had been when he came in last night, so late that it was nearly dawn. "He is one who will taste all kinds, and not be contented till he has had his fill. Roaming about Europe with that bad, brilliant father of his gave him glimpses of many things which he was too poor to enjoy then, but not too young to remember and desire now, when it is possible to gratify the wish. Let him go. He will come back to you when he is tired. It is the only way to manage him, I find." But Gladys did not think so, and, finding that Helwaz would not speak, she resolved that she would venture to do it, for many things disturbed her, which wifely loyalty forbade her to repeat, as well as a feeling that Helwaz would not see cause for anxiety in her simple fears, since he encouraged Felix in this reckless gaiety. Some hours later, she found Canaris newly risen, sitting at his escritoire in their own room, with a strew of gold and notes before him, which he affected to be counting busily, though, when she had entered, she had seen him in a despondent attitude, doing nothing. "How pale you look! Why will you stay so late and get these weary headaches?" she asked, stroking the thick locks off his forehead with a caressing touch. "Too late I stayed, forgive the crime, unheeded flew the hours, for lightly falls the foot of time that only treads on flowers," sang Canaris, looking up at her with an assumption of mirth, sadder than the melancholy which it did not wholly hide. "You make light of it, Felix, but I am sure you will fall ill if you do not get more sleep and quieter dreams," she said, still smoothing the glossy dark rings of which she was so proud. "Cara mia, what do you know about my dreams?" he asked, with a hint of surprise in the manner, which was still careless. "You toss about and talk so wildly sometimes that it troubles me to hear you." "I will stop at once. What do I talk about? Something amusing, I hope?" he asked quickly. "That I cannot tell, for you speak in French or Italian, but you sigh terribly and often seem angry or excited about something." "That is odd. I do not remember my dreams, but it is little wonder my poor wits are distraught after all they have been through lately." "Did I talk last night and spoil your sleep, love?" asked Canaris, idly piling up a little heap of coins, though listening intently for her reply. "Yes. You seemed very busy and said more than once, 'Le jeu est fait, rien ne va plus. Rouge gagne et couleur, or rouge perd et couleur gagne.' I know what those words mean, because I have read them in a novel, and they trouble me from your lips, Felix. I must have been dreaming of a week I once spent in Homburg with my father. We don't do that sort of thing here. Not under the same name, perhaps. Dear, do you ever play?" asked Gladys, leaning her cheek against the head which had sunk a little, as he leaned forward to smooth out the crumpled notes before him. "Why not? One must amuse oneself." "Not so. Please promise me that you will try some safer way. This is not honest." She hesitated over the last word, for his tone had been short and sharp, but uttered it bravely, and stole an arm about his neck, mutely asking pardon for the speech which cost her so much. "What is? Life is all a lottery, and one must keep trying one's luck while the wheel goes round, for prizes are few and blanks many, you know." "Ah, do not speak in that reckless way. Forgive me for asking questions, but you are all I have, and I must take care of you, since no one else has the right, or the will. Ask what you please. I will tell you anything, my visible conscience." And Canaris took her in the circle of his arm, subdued by the courageous tenderness that made her what he called her. "Is that all yours?" she whispered, pointing a small forefinger rather sternly at the money before him, and sweetening the question with a kiss. "No, it's yours, every penny of it. Put it in the little drawer and make merry with it, else I shall be sorry I won it for you. That I cannot do. Please do not ask me. There is always enough in the little drawer for me, and I like better to use the money you have earned. Say rather, the salary which you earn and I spend. It is all wrong, Gladys, but I cannot help it." And Canaris pushed away his winnings as if he despised them and himself. It is my fault that you did this, because I begged you not to let Mr. Hellwise give me so much. I can take anything from you, for I love you, but not from him. So you try to make me think you have enough to gratify my every wish. Is not that true? Yes. I hate to have you accept anything from him, and find it harder to do so myself than before you came, yet I cannot help liking play, for it is an inherited taste, and he knows it. And does not warn you? Not he. I inherit my father's luck as well as skill, and Hellwise enjoys hearing of my success in this, as in other things. We used to play together till he tired of it. There is nothing equal to it when one is tormented with ennui. Felix, I fear that, though a kind friend, he is not a wise one. Why does he encourage your vices and take no interest in strengthening your virtues? Forgive me, but we all have both, and I want you to be as good as you are gifted, she said, with such an earnest, tender face he could not feel offended. He does not care for that. The contest between the good and evil in me interests him most, for he knows how to lay his hand on the weak or wicked spots in a man's heart, and playing with other people's passions is his favorite amusement. Have you not discovered this? Canaris spoke gloomily, and Gladys shivered as she held him closer, and answered in a whisper, Yes, I feel as if under a microscope when with him. Yet he is very kind to me, and very patient with my ignorance. Felix, is he trying to discover the evil in me when he gives me strange things to read, and sits watching me while I do it? Got to be Vara, but of this I am sure. He will find no evil in you, my white-souled little wife, unless he puts it there. Gladys, refuse to read what pains and puzzles you. I will not let him vex your peace. Can he not be content with me, since I am his, body and soul? Canaris put her hastily away, to walk the room with a new sense of wrong hot within him at the thought of the dangers into which he had brought her against his will. But Gladys, caring only for him, ventured to add, with her kindling eyes upon his troubled face, I will not let him vex your peace. Refuse to do the things which you feel are wrong, lest what are only pleasures now may become terrible temptations by and by. I love and trust you as he never can. I will not believe your vices stronger than your virtues, and I will defend you, if he tries to harm the husband God has given me. Bless you for that. It is so long since I have had any one to care for me, that I forgot my duty to you. I am tired of all this froth and folly. I will stay at home hereafter. That will be safest, if not happiest. He began impetuously, but his voice fell, and was almost inaudible at the last word, as he turned away to hide the expression of regret which he could not disguise. But Gladys heard and saw, and the vague fear which sometimes haunted her stirred again, and took form in the bitter thought, Home is not happy. Am I the cause? She put it from her instantly, as if doubt were dishonor, and spoke out in the cordial tone which always cheered and soothed him. It shall be both, if I can make it so. Let me try, and perhaps I can do for you what Mr. Hellwise says I have done for him, caused him to forget his troubles, and be glad he is alive. Canaris swung round with a peculiar expression on his face. He says that, does he? Then he is satisfied with his bargain. I thought as much, though he never condescended to confess it to me. What bargain, Felix? The pair of us. We were costly, but he got us, as he gets everything he sets his heart upon. He was growing tired of me, but when I would have gone, he kept me by making it possible for me to win you for myself and him. 6 months between us have shown you this, I know, and it is in vain to hide from you how much I long to break away and be free again, if ever I can. He looked ready to break away at once, and Gladys sympathized with him, seeing now the cause of his unrest. I know the feeling, for I too am tired of this life, not because it is so quiet, but so divided. I want to live for you alone, no matter how poor and humble my place may be. Now I am so little with you, I sometimes feel as if I should grow less and less to you till I am nothing but a burden and a stumbling block. Can we not go and be happy somewhere else? Must we stay here all our lives? She asked, confessing the desire which had been strengthening rapidly of late. While he lives, I must stay if he wants me. I cannot be ungrateful. Remember all he has done for me. It will not be long to wait, perhaps." Canaris spoke hurriedly, as if regretting his involuntary outburst and anxious to atone for it by the submission which always seemed at war with some stronger, if not nobler, sentiment. Gladys sat silent, lost in thought, while her husband swept the ill-gotten money into a drawer and locked it up, as if relieved to have it out of his sight. Soon the cloud lifted, however, and going to him as he stood at the window, looking out with the air of a caged eagle, she said, with her hand upon his arm, "You are right. We will be grateful and patient. But while we wait, we must work, because in that one always finds strength and comfort. What can we do to earn the wherewithal to found our own little home upon when this is gone? I have nothing valuable. Have you?" "Nothing but this," and he touched the bright head beside him, recalling the moment when she said her hair was all the gold she had. Gladys remembered it as well, and the promise then made to help him, both as wife and woman. The time seemed to have come, and, taking counsel of her own integrity, she had dared to speak in the sincere voice that made truth sweeter than falsehood. Now she tried, in her simple way, to show how the self-respect he seemed in danger of losing might be preserved by a task whose purpose would be both salvation and reward. "Then let the wit inside this head of mine show you how to turn an honest penny," she began, unfolding her plan with an enthusiasm which redeemed its most prosaic features. "Mr. Helwise says that even in the best poetry is not profitable, except in fame. That you already have, and pride and pleasure in the new book is enough, without spoiling it by being vexed about the money it may bring. But you can use your pen in other ways before it is time to write another poem. One of these ways is the translation of that curious Spanish book you were speaking of the other day. That will bring something, as it is rare and old, and you, that have half a dozen languages at your tongue's end, can easily find plenty of such work, now that you do not absolutely need it." "That sounds a little bitter, Gladys. Don't let my resentful temper spoil your sweet one. I am learning fast, among other things, that to him who hath, more shall be given. So you, being a successful man, may hope for plenty to help from all now, though you were left to starve when a kind word would have saved you so much suffering," Gladys answered, not bitterly, but with a woman's pitiful memory of the wrongs done those dearest her. "God knows it would," ejaculated Canaris with unusual fervor. "Mr. Helwise remembers that, I think, and this is perhaps the reason why he is so generous now. Too much so for your good, I fear. And so I speak, because, young as I am, I cannot help trying to watch over you, as a wife should. I like it, Gladys. I am old in many things for my years, but a boy still in love, and you must teach me how to be worthy of all you give so generously and sweetly." "Do I give the most?" "All women do, they say. But go on, and tell me the rest of this fine plan of yours, while I use my polyglot accomplishments. What becomes of you?" he asked, hastily returning to the safer subject, for the wistful look in her eyes smote him to the heart. "I work also. You are still Mr. Helwise's homme d'affaires, as he calls you. I am still his reader. But when he does not need me, I shall take up my old craft again and embroider, as I used to at home. You do not know how skillful I am with the needle, and never dreamed that the initials on the handkerchiefs you admired so much were all my work. Oh, I am a thrifty wife, though such a little one," and Gladys broke into her clear child's laugh, which seemed to cheer them both, as a lark's song makes music even in a cloud. Canaris laughed with her, for these glimpses of practical gifts and shrewd common sense in Gladys were very like the discovery of a rock under its veil of moss, or garland of airy columbines. "But what will he say to all this?" asked the young man, with a downward gesture of the finger, and in his eye a glimmer of malicious satisfaction at the thought of having at least one secret in which Helwise had no part. "We need not tell him. It is nothing to him what we do up here. Let him find out if he cares to know," answered Gladys, with a charmingly mutinous air, as she tripped away to her own little room. "He will care, and he will find out. He has no right, but that will not stop him," returned Canaris, following to lean in the doorway and watch her kneeling before a great basket, from which she pulled reels of gay silk, unfinished bits of work and fragments of old lace. "See," she said, holding up one of the latter, "I can both make and mend, and one who is clever at this sort of thing can earn a pretty penny in a quiet way. Through my old employer I can get all the work I want. So please do not forbid it, Felix. I should be so much happier if I might." "I will forbid nothing that makes you happy, but Hellwise will be exceeding wroth when he discovers it, unless the absurdity of beggars living in a palace strikes him as it does me." "I am not afraid." "You never saw him in a rage." "I have. Quite calm and cool, but rather awful, as he withers you with a look, or drives you half wild with a word that stings like a whip and makes you hate him." "Still I would not fear him unless I had done wrong." "He makes you feel so, whether you have or not, and you ask pardon for what you know is right. It is singular, but he certainly does make black seem white sometimes," mused Canaris, knitting his brows with the old perplexity. "I am afraid so," and Gladys folded up a sigh in the parcel of rosy floss she laid away. Then she chased the frown from her husband's face by talking blithely of the home they would yet earn and enjoy together. Conscious that things were more amiss with him than she suspected, Canaris was glad to try the new cure, and soon found it so helpful that he was anxious to continue it. Very pleasant were the hours they spent together in their own rooms, when the duties they owed Hellwise were done. All the pleasanter for them, perhaps, because this domestic league of theirs shut him out from their real life as inevitably as it drew them nearer to one another. The task now in hand was one that Canaris could do easily and well, and Gladys's example kept him at it when the charm of novelty was gone. While he wrote, she sat near, so quietly busy that he often forgot her presence. But when he looked up, the glance of approval, the encouraging word, the tender smile were always ready and wonderfully inspiring, for their sweet comrade grew nearer day by day. While he rested, she still worked, and he loved to watch the flowery wonders grow beneath her needle, swift as skillful. Now a golden wheat hair, a scarlet poppy, a blue violet, or the white embroidery that made his eyes ache with following the tiny stitches, which seemed to sew seed pearls along a hem, weave graceful ciphers, or make lace work like a cobweb. Something in it pleased his artistic sense of the beautiful, and soothed him, as did the conversation that naturally went on between them. Oftenest he talked, telling her more of his varied life than any other human being knew, and in these confidences she found the clue to many things which had pained or puzzled her before, because, spite of her love, Gladys was clear-sighted, even against her will. Then she would answer with the story of her monotonous days, her lonely labors, dreams, and hopes, and they would comfort one another by making pictures of a future too beautiful ever to be true. Hellwise was quick to perceive the new change which came over Felix, the happy peace which had returned to Gladys. He did care, and he did find out what the young people were about. At first he smiled at the girl's delusion in believing that she could fix a nature so mercurial as that of Canaris, but did not wonder at his yielding, for a time at least, to such tender persuasion, and calling them a pair of innocents, Hellwise let them alone, till he discovered that his power was in danger. Presently he began to miss the sense of undivided control which was so agreeable to him. Canaris was as serviceable as ever, but no longer made him sole confidant, counselor, and friend. Gladys was scrupulously faithful still, but her intense interest in his world of books was much lessened, for she was reading a more engrossing volume than any of these, The Heart of the Man She Loved. Something was gone which he had bargained for, thought he had secured, and now felt wronged at losing. An indiscernible charm, especially pervading his intercourse with Gladys, for this friendship, sweet as honey, pure as dew, had just begun to blossom when a chilly breath seemed to check its progress, leaving only cheerful service, not the spontaneous devotion which had been so much to him. He said nothing, but for all his imperturbability, it annoyed him, as the gnat annoyed the lion, and, though scarcely acknowledged even to himself, it lurked under various moods and motives, impelling him to words and acts which produced dangerous consequences. "Pray forgive us. We are very late. Time goes so fast, we quite forgot!" exclaimed Felix and Gladys both together, as they hurried into the library one bright March morning, looking so blithe and young that Helwise suddenly felt old and sad and bitter-hearted, as if they had stolen something from him. "I have learned to wait," he said, with a cold brevity which was the only sign of displeasure Gladys ever saw in him. In remorseful silence she hastened to find her place in the book they were reading, but Canaris, who seemed bubbling over with good spirits, took no notice of the chill and asked with unabated cheerfulness, "Any commission, sir, beside these letters? I feel as if I could put a girdle around the earth in 40 minutes. It is such a glorious spring-like day." "Nothing but these letters. Stay a moment, while I add another." And taking up the pen he had laid by, Helwise wrote hastily, "To Olivia at the South. The swallows will be returning soon. Return with them if you can. I am deadly dull. Come and make a little mischief to amuse me. I miss you. Jasper." Sealing and directing this, he handed it to Canaris, who had been whispering to Gladys more like a lover than a husband of half a year's standing. Something in the elder man's face made the younger glance involuntarily at the letter as he took it. "Olivia? I promised her to write, but I dared not. No, I forgot it." And Canaris went off, laughing at the grand passion, which now seemed very foolish and far away. "This time, I think, you will remember, for I mean to fight fire with fire," thought Helwise with a grim smile, such as Louis XI might have worn when sending some gallant young knight to carry his own death warrant. End of Chapter 11. Read by Mark Stevens.